For daily Ask Reddit. r/Ask Reddit. Former Anti Vaxxers, what caused you to change your mind? If you enjoy the video, drop a like and subscribe so you never miss a video. My mum told me last week, when we were talking about a COVID-19 vaccine, that she nearly didn't have my brother and I vaccinated. I was shocked, because she was a nurse for years and years, and she now stresses the importance of getting our yearly flu vaccinations and pushes my needle-phobic dad to get his. Basically, when she was doing her nurse training back in the early 70s, she did a few weeks on the only ward in the country at the time for people with profound and multiple disabilities, PMLD. The majority were born with PMLD or had them as a result of oxygen deprivation at birth, but she was told that a handful of them developed them following vaccine injury. Not sure if this is a medically accepted term, but those are the words she used, from a single bad batch of vaccines for measles and rubella, I think. By the time my brother and I were born in 1988 and 1990, she was still affected by what she'd seen back in the 70s, and although she'd seen the progress in vaccinations and there were no more reports of these bad batches of vaccines, she didn't allow them to give us our first vaccine doses on time. It wasn't until my aunt, also a trained nurse, showed her the latest stats and research about vaccines that she reluctantly decided to have us vaccinated. I was 1 year old at the time and scheduled for the MMR jab. It was the Mr. vaccine that she was told caused these vaccine injuries, and she was very reluctant to go ahead with it, but ultimately agreed that both my brother, 2.5 at the time, needed to catch up on all our vaccines. She didn't take us to get them, she sent my dad instead, again, needle phobic, and he and I apparently cried the whole time. She told me that she'd glad she decided for us to get the vaccines as we've been mostly healthy since then, and if it hadn't been for our aunt we might not have ever been vaccinated. I was a teenager and used to believe that if I got sick, my immune system would handle it and make me stronger. Like most youth, I believed I was invulnerable. I figured thousands of years of ancestors had survived without vaccines, and so could I. It was years before I realized that before vaccines, people didn't just heal the viruses away, most of them died or were crippled by illness their whole lives. Edit. Surprisingly, I was a well-educated kid. I loved human biology and aced the test on the immune response. I still remember terms like macrophages and leukocytes. I knew how vaccines worked, yet despite this, I had this flawed logic that if I got a full-strength illness, I'd develop a full-strength response. In my quest to grow stronger and find my limits, I would have dipped myself in every sickness known to man, giving myself a week or two to heal, until eventually I was immune to everything. God, I was dumb. I don't really know why I didn't like the idea of vaccines, but I didn't until my girlfriend had gotten pregnant, and then I stepped on a rusty nail. Like the only way to stop tetanus is the vaccine. Edit. My girlfriend was pregnant and asked what I would do if my daughter picked up tetanus. After I told her I stepped on rusty nail, was unaware how tetanus or really any vaccines work, if that gives an insight to Anti Vaxxers. Not all, but yeah. Hard to say, but reading. Honestly, I was on the elderberry/colloidal silver/whatever natural bullshit flavor of the week in my late teens, early 20s. Could dig up some obscure study from the 1960s to support it. Well, flu shots aren't 100% effective. What's the point? Have you seen all the people who get sick from it? Etc. etc. Simply put, I had bad advice from some of my father's vitamin shop, libertarian, naturopath, whatever friends. In grad school I took more statistics classes, keep reading about data analysis, started to learn what significant sample sizes meant, common logical and statistical fallacies, and, surprise, most statisticians' nonsense doesn't hold up empirically at all. There's just no data to support it, and requires torturing of statistics and misrepresentation to defend their case. Luckily I don't have some epic story of a family member dying from a preventable disease, but it's still embarrassing to think back how arrogantly I was convinced I was more clever than the actual doctors and scientists. My ex-husband was a very controlling person and did not want our kids to get vaccines. I was always so scared knowing my kids had no protection. One day one of our kids scraped themselves on a fence and the school called me. I snapped and took them straight to an urgent care for a tetanus shot and just started secretly getting all my kids vaccines. We eventually divorced, and now all my kids are fully caught up. Kind of boring, but I have a whack job grandmother who believes in all the pseudoscience health BS. Crystal healing, electromagnetic communications cause cancer, vaccines are bad, eat apricot pits to cure cancer, the whole 9 miles. When I was a kid she tried to teach me all of this stuff like it was gospel, and I believed her, because I was a kid, and why would my grandmom be wrong about something? Unfortunately for her, the minute I turned like 7, I got a huge hyperfixation on biology and quickly learned that all the stuff she spouted was utter BS. I'm autistic, and I was like the stereotypical autistic kid, where they just kn about one particular subject and devour any kind of learning material related to it they can get their hands on. I'm actually still like that, except now I can get a degree for it. It was not hard for me to realize that none of the things she believed made any sense, even as a kid.